Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. Today, we're looking at a really interesting piece. It's chapter 17,
Okay.
Thought and Reserve Power. And it's from a book about public speaking.
Interesting.
So really, I think our goal today is to think about how to develop
Yeah.
that kind of mental reserve
Mm-hmm.
that you can call on
Yeah.
to be, really good communicator.
Yeah, absolutely. Like building up that mental muscle, you
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
having those resources at your disposal when
Exactly.
you need them.
Yeah. And it's really interesting how they approach this whole idea of
Yeah.
reserve power. Like one of the first things that the author compares is
Uh,
an empty mind
yeah.
to a stalled car.
Right. Like you've
Yeah.
got no fuel. You can't go anywhere if
Exactly.
you don't have something to draw on.
And who wants to be metaphorically stuck on the side of the road?
Exactly.
Well,
You don't want to be there.
so how do we make sure
Yeah. How to prevent that?
that our mental engines are always running smoothly?
Yeah, well, so the chapter dives into two key ways
Okay.
to sort of fill this mental storehouse.
Okay.
One is direct observation,
Okay.
and they kind of compare this to getting milk straight from the cow,
Okay.
right?
Straight from the source.
Yeah, exactly. The other one is learning from others,
Okay.
which they compare to having the milkman deliver it.
Okay. I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So let's start with the direct observation piece.
Okay.
Is this about more than just,
Yes.
seeing what's right in front of us?
I think it is. I think the author is arguing that true observation is a skill
Okay.
and that not everybody really has it.
Okay.
They use a very powerful quote here.
Okay.
For 1,000 men who can speak, there is only one who can think.
Wow.
For 1,000 men who can think,
Mm-hmm.
there is only one who can see.
So 1 in a million
Yeah.
truly sees.
Really makes you wonder what we're all missing, right?
Right. What are we all missing
Yeah.
if we're not really seeing?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the chapter gives us this really vivid example
Okay.
about this poet Tennyson,
Oh, yeah.
who was known for his observation.
Yeah.
And apparently there was a story about how he was able to correctly
Wow.
identify the color of ash buds in March,
Interesting.
and no one else could.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's like hyper observant.
Yeah, like some sort
Yeah.
of superpower.
Yeah.
So how do we get that superpower?
Right. So how do we develop that kind of skill?
Yeah.
The author kind of suggests we treat the world like a living textbook.
Okay.
Well, practice noticing the detail,
Okay.
even the ones that seem insignificant at first.
Okay.
Pay attention to people's habits, the way things work,
Mm-hmm.
subtle shifts in the environment around you.
So it's kind of like turning everyday life into a scavenger hunt.
Yeah,
almost.
I love that. I love that analogy. Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of finding those hidden gems.
Yeah.
And so all those little details that we observe then become fuel for the second element, which is thinking.
Okay. So we've gathered the information
Yeah.
through observation, but don't we all think
Mm-hmm.
all the time?
We do, but I think the author's making the point that real thinking, true thinking,
Okay.
is a lot more deliberate and demanding than we realize.
Okay.
They compare it to mental arithmetic.
Okay.
It's this active process of, subtracting, multiplying, dividing facts.
So it's engaging with the information,
Oh, yeah.
not just passively letting it
Exactly.
wash over you.
Exactly. You're actively processing it and making connections and drawing conclusions.
And that takes energy and time and patience, and you have to have a clear head
Absolutely.
and the information to begin with.
Yeah. You got to have that raw material.
So we observe and we gather information, and then we process that information through thinking.
Right.
But what happens if we only rely on what we personally observe?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Do we get stuck in our own heads?
Yeah, I think that's where the milkman comes in.
Okay.
Even if our own personal well of observations runs dry, we can still benefit from the insights of others.
Okay.
And that's through reading.
So reading kind of helps us expand that mental storehouse.
Exactly. It fills in the gaps.
Yeah.
It gives us perspectives that we might not have encountered on our own.
And I like how the chapter gives us this example of
Yeah.
Dr. Newell Dwight Hillis,
Yes.
who was known for his incredible breadth of knowledge.
Yeah, he was apparently quite the speaker.
Yeah. And there's this one lecture where they say he drew from over 15 different fields:
Wow.
geology, mythology, electricity.
That's impressive.
Right.
Mm.
And I'm like, I can barely remember what I had for breakfast.
Right. It's hard enough to keep track of your grocery list, let alone,
Exactly.
15 different fields of knowledge.
So what was his secret?
Right. Was he just like a natural polymath, or
Right.
did he have some kind of trick up his sleeve?
Right.
Well, the chapter argues that a big part of his success was actually his reading habits.
Okay.
He understood the power of tapping into the collective wisdom of others through books.
So reading can be a shortcut
In a way,
to
yeah.
building up that reserve power.
It can definitely accelerate the process.
Sometimes we read just to escape,
Oh, absolutely.
right? We're not always reading to
Yeah.
become these intellectual powerhouses.
Right. Sometimes you just want to get lost in a good story. Let's
Exactly.
escape reality for a bit.
So is there a place for that kind of reading?
Yeah, so the chapter acknowledges that there are different reasons why we read.
Okay.
Sometimes it's pure entertainment.
Okay.
Sometimes it's to gather specific information. And then sometimes it's really to stimulate our thinking.
Okay. So ideally, we'd have a good balance
Yeah, I think the ideal scenario is to have a mix of all three.
of all three.
But if we're really serious about, you know, cultivating this thought and reserve power,
Mm-hmm.
then we have to be intentional about what we read.
Okay.
Have to seek out material that challenges us, that pushes our thinking.
So how do we choose the right material? That is the question, isn't it? Right, because it's not like there's a label on the book that says
Right.
guaranteed to make you a better thinker.
There should be. They should have those labels, I think.
Right.
But choosing your reading wisely is just as important as the act of reading itself.
Okay. I'm all ears.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the secrets to building that kind of reading list?
Well, first, the chapter emphasizes the importance of owning and mastering books.
Okay.
It's not just about, borrowing or skimming.
Okay.
It's about engaging deeply with the text
Okay.
and really making that knowledge your own. It's like building your own true university.
Oh, I like that.
This collection of works, that you've really delved into.
Mm-hmm.
But, they also caution against just blindly accepting everything
Oh, right.
we read as, gospel truth.
So we can't just be these passive consumers of information.
Exactly.
We have to be discerning.
You have to engage with it critically, ask questions, form your own opinions.
It's like having this mental debate
Yeah.
with the author.
Pushing back when we disagree.
Yeah, like having a conversation with them.
Highlighting, what resonates with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to think about it.
So it's really about developing this intellectual independence.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
not just about memorizing, facts and figures.
Okay.
It's about understanding the why behind the what.
Yeah.
And, making those connections between different ideas.
So it's about seeing the bigger picture,
Yeah,
not just getting lost in the details.
absolutely. It's about understanding how all those pieces fit together.
And the chapter actually draws a parallel between this kind of discerning reading
Okay.
and the power of observation that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. That's interesting.
I'm not sure I would have made that connection.
Yeah. How do they tie those two together?
Right, how do those connect?
Mhm.
Well, they say, just like we can train ourselves to observe the world around us,
Mhm.
those subtle details,
Okay.
we can also develop the ability to closely examine a text. Yeah, to really look closely at what we're reading.
So instead of just, skimming the surface,
Right.
we have to delve into the nuances.
Look for those little details that might reveal something deeper.
The language, the structure, the examples they're using.
Exactly. And notice their word choices,
Mm-hmm.
how they're building their argument.
Right.
What kind of evidence are they using?
Yeah, it's like the difference between watching a movie with the sound off
Yeah.
and actually immersing yourself in the whole experience.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about getting the full picture.
And they also talk about the importance of not being afraid to, get your hands dirty with a book.
Oh,
So highlighting key passages,
yeah.
making notes in the margins,
Dog-earing pages.
maybe even a dog-eared page.
Yeah, why not? Make it your own.
It's about making the book your own
Exactly.
and creating this record of your thought process.
Yeah, you're leaving a trail of breadcrumbs as you go through it.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Because how many times have we read something and then forgotten it a week later?
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it never even happened.
Exactly. So this helps us, connect with it on a deeper level.
It increases the chances that you'll actually remember it.
So it's not about owning books just to look smart. It's
Mm.
about actually using them
It's about using them as tools
as tools.
for your own learning and growth.
Right. Okay.
And then they also go on to caution us to be wary of what we read.
Wary of what we read.
Yeah, don't just accept everything you read as gospel truth.
Wait, so you're telling me I shouldn't believe everything I read on the internet?
Oh my gosh, that's a dangerous game, my friend.
Right. So that's a whole other level.
Yeah, the internet adds a whole other layer of complexity.
Right.
But the principle applies to anything you read.
Okay.
Really consider the source.
Mhm.
Think about the author's perspective,
Their biases.
the credibility of their sources.
So it's like we're detectives,
Yeah.
following the clues.
You got to be a critical reader.
And looking for any inconsistencies.
Look for those hidden agendas.
Right. Any hidden agendas.
Yeah.
And this is especially important, I think, when it comes to
Oh, yeah.
controversial topics.
Especially these days when it feels like everybody has an agenda.
Right. It's hard to know what to trust.
So, if you're reading about a politically charged issue, it's important to get a variety of perspectives.
Okay.
Look for reputable sources and try to understand all sides of the argument.
But it's so easy to just read things
Oh, I know.
that confirm our own beliefs.
It's that confirmation bias.
Right.
We just want to see things that reinforce what we already believe.
It's comfortable.
Yeah, it's easy. But the chapter encourages us to step outside of that comfort zone.
Okay.
To engage with ideas that challenge our thinking.
Even if it makes us uncomfortable.
Even if it makes us a little bit uncomfortable.
Right. But even if we disagree with an author,
right,
we can still learn from them.
Absolutely. You can refine your own thinking in the process.
It's about expanding our mental horizons.
Exactly.
Right? And being open to having our assumptions challenged.
Yeah, got it.
And we don't have to become experts on every single topic.
No.
It's more about developing those critical thinking skills.
It's about that mental agility.
And the ability to process information effectively.
Be able to think on your feet.
No matter what the subject is.
Exactly, because those skills are going to serve you well in any situation.
So whether you're writing an email or you're having a conversation with a friend.
Or presenting an idea at work.
Or, presenting an idea at work.
You got to be able to think clearly and communicate effectively.
Right.
And back up your statements with solid reasoning.
So this has really got me thinking about my own reading habits.
Yeah, me too. I'm always trying to improve.
Right. I think there's definitely room for improvement. So we've talked about choosing our reading wisely, actively engaging with the material.
Right.
But how does all of this translate to building that
That's the big question.
reserve power, that mental fuel that we need to, navigate any situation?
Right. Like, how do we actually put all of this into practice?
Look, we spent all this time, gathering these tools from our mental toolbox.
Yeah, observation thinking, reading, like all these different skills.
Right. But now we need to actually figure out how to use them.
Exactly. It's like having all the ingredients for a cake, but not knowing how to bake it.
Exactly.
You need that recipe.
Right. So how do we actually take all of this and build that reserve power?
So the chapter really stresses that all this mental work,
Okay.
it's not just, some abstract exercise.
Okay.
It's about empowering us
Okay.
to communicate and contribute meaningfully.
So having something to say and being able to say it well.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And they use a really pointed example.
Okay.
You can't speak on, something like the tariff. Right.
If you know nothing about it.
Okay.
Right? It's like trying to bake a cake without the recipe.
Right. You're going to end up with something.
Might end up with something.
And it might not be very good.
But chances are it's not going to be what you were hoping for.
Okay. So we need that foundational knowledge.
Absolutely.
But is that all there is to reserve power?
It's a key ingredient.
Okay.
But I think it goes deeper than that.
Okay.
True reserve power. It comes from being able to think critically, independently, synthesize information, and then articulate your own unique perspective.
So it's not just about reciting facts.
No.
It's about understanding.
It's about understanding the nuances.
Right.
The connections, the potential arguments, and counter arguments.
It's about being able to have a discussion.
Yeah.
A thoughtful discussion.
Contribute meaningful insights.
And maybe even change someone's mind.
Exactly. And, remember that example we talked about?
With the group discussing the policy, and they're all just throwing around the term socialistic, but they don't really understand the complexities of it.
Right.
That's where reserve power really comes in.
Right.
If you've taken the time to really understand something,
right,
you can cut through the noise.
Okay.
You can offer a more informed perspective.
Your words have more weight because they're backed by...
Exactly.
You're not just parroting something you heard.
Right. You're not just...
You've actually done the work.
Right. You've done the work.
You've grappled with the idea.
Right. You've actually done the work.
Right. You've done the work.
You've grappled with the ideas.
It's like having X-ray vision.
I like that.
Being able to see beyond the surface.
You see the underlying principles at play.
Right. And understand what's really going on.
And that's what sets you apart.
Okay.
It's that ability to not just participate in the conversation, but really elevate it.
Wow. This has been a really insightful deep dive.
Yeah, I've enjoyed this conversation.
We talk about so many things.
A lot to think about.
Honing our observation skills, becoming more discerning readers, thinking critically. But before we wrap up, I always like to give our listeners something to ponder.
Okay, I like that. A spark to ignite further exploration.
So here's a little challenge for you.
Okay.
What's one area of knowledge that you could deep dive into to build your own reserve power?
That's a great question.
And how could you then apply that knowledge?
Yeah, how can you use it to benefit others?
In a way that benefits others.
Because knowledge is powerful, but it becomes truly meaningful when we share it and use it to make a positive impact on the world.
Well, that's it for this deep dive.
This was great.
Until next time,
Until next.
keep those minds sharp.
Keep those conversations flowing.
And those conversations engaging.
Absolutely.